It was supposed to be a perfect day, the kind of day that 9-year-old Oliver Weston had dreamed about for months. Bundled in a navy blue hoodie despite the warm sun, Oliver sat quietly in his motorized wheelchair, a small British flag folded neatly across his lap. His mother, Rachel, stood behind him, smiling nervously as they approached the sprawling grounds of Buckingham Palace. Oliver's body was frail, muscles weakened by a rare neurological disorder, but his spirit was fierce. "I want to see them, Mum," he whispered. "The real guards." She squeezed his shoulder gently. "You will, sweetheart. Front row." Crowds surged along the barricades. Selfie sticks jabbed the air. Tourists angled for better shots. Vendors called out selling ice creams and tiny replica bearskin hats. Rachel expertly maneuvered Oliver's chair through the shifting waves of people, edging closer and closer to the front. Finally, they found a small open spot along the barriers, a perfect view. Oliver's face lit up. The changing of the guard was minutes away. Across the courtyard, 2 Queen's Guards had already taken their positions, imposing figures in immaculate red tunics and towering black hats. One of them was Sergeant Thomas Hale, 35, veteran of 3 combat deployments, now tasked with representing centuries of British tradition. Still, motionless, untouchable. From Oliver's perspective, Hale was a living giant, a superhero carved from stone. The crowd around them shifted again. A group of loud tourists approached, 2 men and a woman laughing raucously, shoving each other like schoolboys. At their center was a bulky man in cargo shorts and sunglasses, his camera slung around his neck like a trophy. Trevor Gaines, an American who believed the world owed him good angles and quick service. Rachel tensed. She tried to shield Oliver as the group elbowed closer. "Excuse me," she said politely. "My son can't move easily." The man barely glanced at them. "Maybe you should have come earlier, lady," he muttered. A sudden jolt. Trevor had stumbled sideways, intentionally or not, and his hip smashed into Oliver's wheelchair, sending the boy jolting sideways. Rachel gasped, catching the chair before it tipped. Oliver's eyes widened, his hands flying to the wheels for balance. "Hey!" Rachel cried. "Watch it!" Trevor smirked, adjusting his sunglasses. "Relax. It's not like I hit him." A few tourists nearby turned, frowning, but no one intervened. The guards, trained to ignore disturbances, remained statues. It should have ended there. It didn't. Trevor turned fully toward Oliver, towering over the small boy. "Hope you enjoy the view, little man. Not like you're gonna march any time soon." He mimed pushing an invisible wheelchair back and forth, chuckling at his own joke. The woman with him gave a half-hearted laugh and looked away, uncomfortable. Oliver stared at his lap, cheeks burning. Rachel's voice shook. "Please, leave us alone." Trevor shrugged and turned to photograph the guards, blocking Oliver's view completely. Without warning, Trevor shifted again, this time deliberately shoving the front wheel of Oliver's chair aside with his foot as he maneuvered for a better shot. Oliver's chair jerked sharply to the side, the little flag slipping from his lap. Rachel bent down to retrieve it, heart pounding. A mother nearby gasped audibly. Someone murmured, "That's enough." Sergeant Hale saw it all. From his post, eyes fixed forward, he registered every movement. The jostling, the shove, the mocking laughter. For 8 years, he had stood through worse, drunks, protesters, pranksters. But something about the boy's trembling hands, the fallen flag, and the sheer cruelty of the moment burned hotter than any sun. He breathed deeply, anchoring himself to the oath he had sworn. Endure. Representative protect. But protect what? Tradition? Or something more? Trevor leaned down again, mocking, sneering. He reached out as if to tousle Oliver's hair. a gesture both demeaning and invasive. Rachel slapped his hand away, furious. Trevor laughed. "Relax, lady. He's not made of glass." A ripple ran through the crowd. Even the tourists, trained to mind their own business, shifted uneasily. Eyes turned toward Hale. The question was silent, but deafening. Would he move? Would he let this continue? Sergeant Hale's fingers tightened imperceptibly around his rifle. His training screamed, "Stay still." His instincts roared, "Move." He watched as Trevor shoved Oliver's chair once more, spinning it halfway around. The boy's flag fluttered helplessly to the ground again. Oliver gasped, blinking rapidly to hold back tears. Rachel's face crumpled. The crowd waited, tense, silent. Would tradition matter more than compassion? Without warning, Hale broke formation. He pivoted sharply on his heel and strode forward. Rifle angled diagonally across his chest, boots hammering against the cobblestones with chilling precision. The sound alone split the air like a gunshot. Gasps echoed through the courtyard. Phones dropped. Cameras swung to capture him. Tourists staggered backward instinctively, clearing a wide path. Hale closed the distance between himself and Trevor in seconds. Trevor, still grinning, turned just as the guard stopped inches away. Towering, immovable, radiating pure, barely contained fury beneath the surface. Without touching him, Hale slammed the butt of his rifle into the ground once. A deep, resonant crack. The vibration snapped Trevor's smirk clean off his face. He stumbled backward, hands raised instinctively. And then, in a voice like iron scraped against stone, low, deadly calm, but carrying across the courtyard, Hale spoke. "Step. Back. Now." 3 words, each syllable carved from centuries of discipline, tradition, and righteous fury. Trevor's mouth opened, then closed. No bravado left, no jokes, only fear. Trevor stammered, taking 2 steps backward. Then another, nearly tripping over his own feet. Palace security, emboldened by Hale's unprecedented move, surged forward at last. They seized Trevor by both arms, escorting him swiftly toward the barriers. The man's protests were weak, incoherent. No one listened. No one cared. Hale didn't return to his post immediately. Instead, he knelt, carefully, reverently, beside Oliver's wheelchair. He picked up the small flag, dusted it off with the flat of his gloved hand, and held it out. "You dropped this, sir." Oliver's mouth trembled. He took the flag with both hands, gripping it tightly. Rachel wiped her eyes, unable to find words. Then, still kneeling, Hale did something no one expected. He brought his right fist to his chest in a short, powerful salute, not to royalty, not to the crowd, but to Oliver, to courage, to dignity. For a heartbeat, the courtyard was frozen in reverent silence. Then, almost reluctantly, one person began to clap. Then another, and another. The applause built slowly, then rose into a roaring wave that filled the palace courtyard with sound. Tears gleamed in strangers' eyes. Parents pulled their children closer. For once, a crowd wasn't cheering for spectacle. They were honoring something real. After the courtyard cleared and the commotion settled, Sergeant Hale walked back to his post, each step heavier than the last. He stood once more, still, silent. But something had changed. His breathing was deeper, his eyes clearer. He had made a choice. Now, he would face the consequences. In a quiet palace office, Captain Ellis reviewed the report. He tapped his pen against the desk. Across from him, Hale stood at attention. Ellis didn't speak for a long time. Then, "You left formation. You confronted a civilian. You spoke. You moved." He flipped to the final page. "And you did exactly what any decent man should have done." Pause. No reprimand. Dismissed. Later that evening, Hale found a small envelope in his locker. Inside was a handwritten note. You showed my son that courage doesn't always come with medals. Sometimes it wears red and stays silent until it matters most. Thank you. Rachel Weston. Tucked inside, a photo of Oliver holding his flag with a giant smile. The caption, "To the guard who didn't stand still when it counted." No headlines, no speeches, but things shifted. Guards noticed how the public stood differently now, how children waved more earnestly, how fewer tourists dared to provoke. The palace revised internal guidelines. In rare, exceptional moments, discretion shall be used in defense of dignity. It was unofficial, unannounced, but understood. 3 months later, Oliver returned to Buckingham Palace. He sat in his chair, flag in hand, eyes scanning the line of guards. Then he saw him. Hale. Same posture, same silence. But now, something different in his eyes. Recognition. Oliver raised his flag. Hale didn't smile, didn't blink. But he shifted, barely, and tapped 2 fingers against his chest. A silent salute. Just for him. A photographer nearby captured the moment. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. A boy and a soldier. Both brave in different ways. He was trained to never break. But that day, for a boy in a chair, he did. And in doing so, he reminded all of us. Rules matter. But humanity matters more.